You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks for joining me on another edition of Inside Automotive right here at CBT News. With the NADA show now behind us, we've got a clear picture of what's top of mind for 2025. And joining me now to break it down is Tim Jackson, who's the former president and CEO of the Colorado Automobile Dealers Association, and who really had a front row seat to many of the conversations and meetings that were happening out there. So Tim, thank you so much for joining me on the show. Very much appreciate it.
Glad to be here. And yeah, it was New Orleans NADA show was unique in many aspects. It will live in infamy, I think, as far as being one of the most challenged to ever get to. For those that weathered the storm, so to speak, and made it, I think they saw a really good convention.
Sure.
And I thought the trade show was spectacular. The seminars and presentations that I saw were top notch. I think Melissa Wolpert and the NADA show staff were excellent in everything they did.
Yes. First, they really do. They put on a first class show, and it shows. And so, talk to us. What were some of the biggest themes and takeaways that you heard from dealers and vendors at this year's show?
Well, I think that the conversation piece was always the weather, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's really anticipation with the change of the administration at the federal level. The questions, and some of it is you could say kind of decided already, but there's still going to be a lot of questions going forward. What's the auto industry going to look like under the Trump administration? We know that the new CAFE standards they've been written out as of, I think, yesterday or today. So we'll go back to the previous standard on the federal level. Now there's some that anticipate they'll try to overturn the California standard and not have a separate standard, which I think for the industry and for consumers that would be really beneficial, because having a one national standard for emissions, even if it's a tough standard, makes a whole lot more sense than having multi-state standards.
Sure.
And you know how expensive that is for the automakers to comply with and to keep up with, and for consumers, it makes it really, really confusing.
Sure. I read a report that said that Colorado led the way in terms of increased EV sales.
Yeah, Colorado passed California on percentage of new cars that are electric, and that counts both battery electric and plug-in hybrid. That number after November of 2024 was about 25.5%, but after December for the fourth quarter, the latest data I saw showed that Colorado hit 31.3% electric, and which is just shy of 1 out of every 3 cars sold in Colorado was either a battery electric or a plug-in hybrid.
Right. And what do you attribute that to?
Combination of two things. It's a combination of both the federal and the state incentives.
Okay.
And what you get, and I guess the terminology would be calling it layered incentives. So the federal 7,500, especially on leases, and then the state in Colorado has had a $5,000 incentive.
Okay.
Some of this has either been spent out and gone away, may come back, but there was another $4,000 for income qualified buyers in Colorado if they turned in or traded in an old high emitting car that would be recycled by the Clear the Air Foundation, which Colorado New Car Dealers created.
Wow.
And so for those income qualified people, and the income wasn't real low, so it was like over $100,000 a year. So for those income qualified people that had an old high emitter that they could trade in, they'd get $9,000 plus the $7,500 at the federal level, $16,500, and then even the electric utility, the primary one for the Front Range in Colorado, Xcel Energy, did have, now this has run out as well, but they did have an additional incentive for buying an electric or putting in a electric charging station.
Wow. Sounds like the state of Colorado would just pay for your EV.
Just about, yeah. some would say your EV is free here.
That's
And,
right. What do you?
and I think that's
What's
not too far off.
what's your take on the Trump administration's desire to do away with all of that and to say we don't need tax incentives, we don't need these crazy numbers that we're putting on the backs of OEMs to hit a certain number by 2035, and all of that to be gone?
I mean, I think a real argument could be made for that. And um, it's so I think again, I think on one national standard on emissions is good, and that's what the Trump administration is trying to go to. What's bad is that we've already been down that road, and on the federal level and some certain states on an elevated standard. So it's really expensive for the automakers. And Jim, when it's expensive for the automakers, that ultimately gets passed through.
Oh yeah.
As a cost to consumers. Now, it may not be all passed through on an electric vehicle. Some of it's passed through on the let's say, more profitable gas vehicles.
Yeah.
But it does add on to the price of cars. And you and I have talked before, and I've had articles on your website about the need for more affordable cars.
Yeah.
And this certainly goes against that goal, that ultimate goal of making cars more affordable for the masses.
Yeah, for sure. What were the conversations, or I should say, what were the major concerns or pain points that kept coming up in your conversations with dealers?
I think predictability of inventory, predictability of interest rates, and of course the interest rate issue is still in play.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Earlier this week the Fed decided not to further lower the interest rate.
Right.
President is pushing them to do that. So we'll see where that ends up. That's going to be a fight. We can just see that fight coming. So predictability on interest rates, predictability on cost of loans, predictability on access to loans, predictability on the cars themselves. Mm-hmm. So and then I think there's also a lot of concern out there among the retail community about these efforts, and you've seen them and have reported on them for the direct sales, things like the Scout or maybe the Honda Sony car, the Sony version of the Honda car.
That's right.
And others. And we're, not much of an argument can be made toward profitability for doing that for the automakers, because there's only one direct sales company that's profitable, and it's kind of an anomaly. The others haven't been yet.
Yeah, no, I know. And I heard the same thing from dealers. That was a concern. It looks like NADA got what they wanted in their fight, which was a great fight that they won against the FTC. And that was a big win, to do away with what they were trying to do and trying to lump us in with junk fees and what have you. So the Cars Act. So talk to us about that.
Absolutely, Jim. That win, that victory on behalf of the NADA and Texas auto dealers also had a dog in that fight, so to speak. Congratulations to them. It really shows and it demonstrates the value and the importance of NADA as an advocacy organization.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's just the latest. I mean, they've had many victories down through the years. It is just the latest. I was thinking, and you probably did too, would it have been so much better if that news would have broke about 7 days early while the dealers were all together in New Orleans, because I can assure you there would have been a few extra parties in New Orleans celebrating that victory.
Yeah, for sure. Given by NADA and Texas Dealer Associations or their attorneys, right? How do you see when you think about the retail automotive industry evolving over the next year? What comes to mind? You think it's gonna be a good year in the auto industry? And
I'm very optimistic, and I'm very optimistic for overall for a good year. And I guess it depends on how you measure that. The SARS projections, this statistical annual rate of sales, SARS, is back in the north of 17 million. So that should always, of course, be a good year. But I think the only thing that could potentially derail that is we don't know where this tariff thing is going to go
Yeah.
and how that's going to play out. And with the new administration, and they've been very vocal about tariffs, so we know where their head and their heart is on that concept.
Yeah.
So tariffs are a question. Interest rates is a question. These challenges to the franchise model are a question. And then one thing we haven't discussed here yet is just the let's say the challenges and volatility within the automakers themselves. Where's the Nissan Honda arrangement going to end up? Where's Stellantis? There's some new announcements, I think, just this week on Stellantis. They're going to turn their advertising and marketing on its head and redo that and come at that as a different approach.
Yeah.
I think dealers will cheer a different approach to that because Stellantis represents some really iconic brands, and we need them in this U.S. market. We need them to survive.
Yeah,
so we
I
hope
agree.
they get their act together, so to speak. So just, I think, questions about those issues and how the automakers are going to do over the long haul going forward.
Yeah, for sure. Tim Jackson, former president of the Colorado Dealers Association, good friend of CBT News. Appreciate all your support over the last 12 years that we've been running our broadcast, and all around good guy. So thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Seems like only yesterday we were starting out.
That's exactly right.
Time flies.
It does. Thanks so much.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.